Welcome, everybody, to our May 2021 energy forecast. My name is Jona Bryndis. So let's look into the energy forecast and the energy analysis for May 2021. And what are these outer energies, these collective energies, these planetary and cosmic energies, as well as human collective energies, as well as simply things such as seasons or constellations and so forth, what they are bringing in, and how this triggers certain aspects, challenges on the physical and emotional, mental, social, spiritual, and perhaps also for you observable on an energetic level, and how this might play out in our collective. Harmonizing is a word that comes from energy work. It has to do with harmony, obviously. It has to do with finding something. We're trying to find something that can bring something that is disharmonic, okay? And disharmonic means that there's some kind of dissonance. It's not sort of working together right. Maybe there's something missing. Maybe there's a sort of a wrench in the system here somewhere. Maybe there is something outside of it that needs to be added again. Okay, so something isn't whole, something is off. And harmonizing is the process of bringing all that resists, all that is in disharmony, that creates some kind of dissonance on an inner or outer level, into a place of sort of swinging together, if you will, without using too many frequency terms here. Okay, so harmonizing is what this looks like, this May energy, and the practical translation of it, finding new ways, hints at that something occurs, something happens as soon as things that are previously irreconcilable or not able to work together or not able to harmonize, that those, as they do, that they are opening new ways. So this is a very mental way of describing really what these May energies look like, to me as an energy reader. And once more, just a reminder that I'm not a clairvoyant, I'm not a fortune teller. I'm an energy healer, an energy reader, which means I am reading out the collective energy here based on my ability to see energies. And from my perspective, those are things that have already happened, that are already there. Some of us are responding earlier or early, yes. We call this being energetically sensitive. Those of you who work with me understand this term as just being able to pick up on things before they sort of manifest in the physical, before they become 3D. And in our daily online discussions and meditations that are free for everybody, we can, talk about these things on a day-to-day level, which allows us to see certain trajectories and to recognize, that there are bigger things going on that we are already picking up on without knowing what it means. And so my job is to translate that and perhaps bring in meaning, just due to the fact that I've been doing this for so long, and that I am able to pick up the patterns. So the collective energies in May, they will mostly be felt as a drastic shift compared to, like, say, the situation up until now. Now we are at the end of April, and I want to let you know that there still is a little bit that is going down here in these last days of April. So understand that there is a lot of chaotic energy right now. in the collective. This has to do obviously with the continued and prolonged uncertainty that we've experienced here in these last 13, 14, 15 months since the beginning of our COVID timeline, but also some of the political and societal changes that have occurred in this time period that are really impacting our social behavior, our social values, and for many of us also our freedom. I'm going to talk about freedom. I'm not necessarily talking about whether wearing masks makes sense or not. I'm talking about our freedom to move where we want to go, to think what we want to think, to express what we want to express, and so forth. And I'm also not talking about freedom of speech or what we sort of summarize here in these social movements such as wokeness, the green thinking, and so forth. These are all phenomena that come to us here as part of this overall uncertainty, as part of this overall unknown that we're facing right now, and with that also, unfortunately, confusion that we all feel. So this confusion that is mostly determined by our physiology, by our nervous system, that as soon as there is uncertainty or the confrontation with the unknown, as soon as that hits, it will go into less rational thinking. So I want you guys to understand that, without seeing this as a judgment, that the overall ability of our collective to make wise decisions is a bit inhibited. And that's not because we're digressing or becoming dumber. I mean, partially it is. Mostly because of these propaganda and marketing and mind control type of mechanisms that we see to bring some order back into the chaos, all right? But mostly because of the physiological functions that have to do with our autonomous nervous system. Because if we are starting to be afraid, if our survival stuff gets triggered, okay, then our entire energy, not just sort of in an energetic way, but in an actual physiological way, goes into our more sort of archaic or animalistic type of reactions, the fight, flight, or freeze. And if this uncertainty becomes big enough, then the human psychology has a tendency to go into freeze. And so this kind of freeze, the passivity and not doing anything and not really knowing what to do and not really knowing what solutions are, that is something that has created all this momentum in regards to conspiracy theories. Because what our mind needs to do when there is an unknown, from its perspective, is one out of two things. And this may sound silly when you listen to this, but this is actual psychology. In order to bridge the gap of the unknown, we either need a culprit, and not that it changes anything on the situation, but it does change the way we think about things. So if we can find a culprit or some kind of reason, it's because of that, all right, then our neurotransmitters experience a temporary high, a temporary relief. And let me just repeat that. It doesn't change anything about the situation, but somehow it calms down our ego mind. Problem with that is, as you guys know, is that this isn't always very rational, okay? It just means that for as long as we have somebody that we can blame it on or something that explains it, yeah, we are satisfied, and that's why we see this drastic increase in all these movements and all these some of them remind of fanaticism, really, because they're no longer rational. It's no longer about finding a solution. It's just about insisting that this is the cause. So it's a very linear way, a very irrational way of thinking, actually, that has taken over the collective. And with it, we've lost the ability to discern truth. Why? Why am I saying this? Because when we are in that part of our brain and all the blood goes there and our breathing goes shallow and our amygdala is triggered and our autonomous nervous system can only see more or less how to get through the next 5 minutes. The part in our brain that is actually able to understand more complex quantities isn't even really turned on. Okay, and that's important, for our survival of the species. That when we are like chased by a lion or whatever, that we don't think too much. Problem with that is if we do this for too long, our neural pathways actually change. And this is what we're observing right now. So the collective is now officially entering into something that we will probably call in a few years sort of as a collective mental illness. Okay, so we see this in increase in depression, anxiety, suicide, and also this erratic lashing out. Yeah, these unrests or these expressions of completely dysregulated violence, also domestic violence, but I'm referring to these revolution thoughts or these mass shootings and so forth. The other option that our ego psychology can use is to go into this place of not needing to have an explanation, but fixating on one person or one thing that can bring solution for everything. The one to fix it all, the shortcut. All right, so this is the other phenomenon that we are observing, and it happens for the same reason. It's just depending on the aptitude of the person who does that, which is a form of externalization. This is where we basically give up our power to one thing or one action. In this case, sometimes in some countries it's the leader of the country, president or something, and sometimes it's an organization or something, but globally, I guess we can say that right now the vaccines are kind of like somewhere there with the worshipping of science, or well, whatever is called science right now. So this is the part that we need to understand. This sounds a bit gloomy, but it's not meant in that way. We need to understand how our ego functions so that we understand its dysfunctions, okay? And we are in that sort of dysfunctional ego state as a collective, which is why we see all these erratic things within and around us. But there's a shift that is coming in right now. And this shift has something to do with unexpected support. It has something to do with seeing a bigger context. All right. And, on a practical level, it means that we're beginning to see more facts. Okay. Revelations, things that will be revealed. Yeah. Within that sort of a propaganda machine, obviously. That's why one and the same fact can sound very, very differently depending on what media outlet you are getting this info, which is one of the things that those of us who are conscious have been healing for a long time already. We have to be very conscientious and discerning about where we're looking for information. The other thing is we have to literally be conscientious about looking for information ourselves, a due diligence type of notion that we really need to heed here, because without that, we cannot know if the information that we are receiving is tainted or is an agenda, has some kind of other agenda, or is merely an echo chamber. The problem that happens with social, getting our news from social media, because the algorithms that are there, they store our preferences and basically just show us what we like, okay, because it gives our ego a good feeling. We get a slight dopamine hit if we read something that confirms our own bias. So that's the part here that we all need to understand. Yeah, we need to understand that we have an inner bias, all of us do, and then we are also in a collective condition right now that creates an outer bias. And in my video Mind Control and Higher Thinking, you can find a bit more detailed information about how this works and also how this is energetically processed and what we can do. The reason why I'm reiterating this here is because there's a shift here in May. So in April, there was a whole new sort of experience of future. Okay, so all of a sudden it kind of dawned on us that, well, maybe COVID isn't going to be gone just because, however many percentage of people have a vaccine. And maybe, it's not going away. Maybe we're going to have to learn how to live with this. So maybe that one option here where we externalize all our power into one thing isn't going to work out. And on the other hand, well, maybe, whatever we thought it was isn't actually the case. So, the corporate thinking, or the blaming thinking. So we are now faced with a whole new practical problem. This is the energy that came in April, and it led us to needing to rethink and reevaluate our values, what truly matters to us, and also how we see our future. So in April, I said it's a really good month to do a vision board, to really work with your deeper motivation of what it actually is that you want to go for, how you want to express yourself, how you want to actualize yourself. Okay, so this is basically the situation in which we are right now. The May energies are, very bifurcated in this way. They're very ambiguous, okay? Because if we don't do anything, then things are just going to stay in that trajectory. And we will then experience our reality, sort of what I often call as according to the collective karma. So we will experience our reality just how the majority of people experience it. If we, however, use this awareness, use the things that were shown to us internally and externally here in this last month, core fears that were triggered, or still are, core trauma, a lot of inner child stuff, that shows us really how our motivation and our own confirmation bias, all right, has driven us to make choices in a certain way. This is what we can change here in May, because as soon as we make one choice, that goes beyond that goes beyond how we've always done things, in simple words, we will experience unexpected support. And that unexpected support or empowerment comes from a source that our ego cannot recognize. It has to do with our own heart, with our own authenticity, with our own self-awareness, and with knowing what we're doing. Knowing what it is in us that wants to come to an expression, what it is that matters to us, what it is that we value, that expresses us in our entirety. Yeah, so self-actualization is a huge, big sort of draw. The problem with this is that the outer conditions are not favorable. So we have to kind of believe in that. We have to have trust in that once we let go, basically, you know, let go of thinking that we know better, yeah, than divine order, that we will be supported. And this is the sort of the retrocausal dilemma, yeah, that our ego cannot resolve itself, because it cannot really do that unless it goes into some kind of fantastical sort of kumbaya thinking, yeah, where the solution is somehow externalized, aliens, vaccines, president, whatever movement, okay, or the other extreme where we get so fixated on it's a person's or an organization's fault, we just have to go against that, fight against that. Both will not be able to help us to utilize this shift. So this shift is really something that I can only describe as almost like a moment of choice. It is that bifurcation that I have been talking about for years. It's like literally, and this is exactly how we're going to feel this. I can pinpoint this for you in the important dates aspect here in a few minutes, where we will feel like we're standing on an intersection, and one path leads to the right and one leads to the left. No political pun intended here. And we have to make a choice. We have to make a choice whether, actually it's three paths, okay? It's one extreme on the other side, where we get fixated on wanting to be right, on wanting to have our belief and our way. Yeah, that includes, you know, the confirmation bias and so forth. Yeah, that makes us lose ourselves in ourselves. Yeah, in the narcissism, in the sort of greed, and all that comes with that. It's a very sort of cold mental world in which we see ourselves more or less like in a dehumanized way. Or we go to the other extreme, which is the one where we externalize our power and more or less bet everything on some kind of, you know, out there solution, you know, whatever that entails for the person, okay, whatever there's, you know, maybe conspiracy theories involved, or, you know, sort of some concepts that some people bring in here that they seemingly have proof for, or, you know, even things like sort of miraculous, like something like a second coming or something like that, miracles, okay? But miracles that are externalized with some kind of passivity involved, that, you know, where the person gets lost in the world, where they get lost outside of themselves. Both of these extremes form the two darknesses that humans have to contend with, that comes through our own inner duality, okay? Here too, an extra video on my YouTube channel elaborating on the two darknesses. So the third way, and that's you know, why I often refer to solutions or higher vibratory solutions as the third one, is the one where we stay in our center, where we stay in our middle, where we understand what our motivation is, where we don't need to be 100%, we don't need to be finished with all this. We see ourselves as a spiritual being. We understand that we have a body, that we have emotions, that we have a mind, that we have an ego, but also that we have a heart and that we have a soul. And we understand that, when uncertainty hits, the primary task force is to overcome this animalistic being in us, that's tied to our body, mind, and learn how to deal with or to regulate our shadow, our weaknesses, our temptations, so that we can grow beyond these collective limitations. So when I say you need to know what you're doing, I'm not talking about, having a proper plan or strategy. No, actually, that can be very elusive. The ego mind, the more it believes that it has it figured out, the more self-deceptive it becomes. It's a different kind of place. It's the place of reconciliation, where we can sort of work with our ego, with our emotions, with our body, understand the limitations, and still feel that there, or still be open for something that is greater than ourselves. So it's the middle way, guys. It's the center place where we are more or less connected with ourselves, and that requires us to understand some of these things that we have discussed here as Sacred Self-Healing Community, like how to feel when we're connected with our heart, and what it actually is that we perceive as this yearning for a deeper connection. And so the overall theme here for our collective, namely this sort of crass juxtaposition of wanting to grow, wanting to evolve, wanting to progress, and at the same time also feeling this really, really strong need for security, will continue in May, and May will also continue these correction energies that I already talked about in April, but here more so as a trajectory place. So the more resistance we have towards what we are experiencing, the less likely we're going to be able to trampoline ourselves out of that. The ability to sidestep, to out-vibrate the collective experience will come through our ability to harmonize, through our ability to bridge the gap between, this body, mind, and heart mind of ours, to bridge the gap between our animalistic being and our spiritual being. And that is more or less sort of the springboard for all of us into either that way or that way, into out-vibrating the collective experience and moving into higher levels of self-expression, and ultimately, really coming out of the woodwork and finally understanding what it means to be me, and to be okay with being me, and to be okay with not needing to be perfect, but understanding that a life based on fear, life based on sort of the fail-safe, or status quo, is really a waste of energy. And that's I'm hoping what you guys here who are listening, who are participating in this live webinar, what you are aiming for. So for you guys, this correction, that I've called the confrontation with untruth, is exactly what you needed to calibrate yourself towards who you truly are, towards finding out what it actually is that you do want to manifest. And the things that triggered our core fears, these things that are being revealed and that are being continually revealed here in May. So May will bring, on an outer level, a collective level, huge revelations about some of the unknowns in our lives, such as, life on other planets, or, origin of COVID, or, what we actually can do to take our health authority back. So these things are really, really big in May. And they will put you into that place of decision making. And that's why, finding new ways is really sort of the encapsulated energy, because you're gonna have to make a choice. And my tip for you is to look for the third option. Okay, whenever things look bleak, whenever they look, either or, black or white, good or bad, okay, that's when you have to pay attention, because that's when you're caught in your ego. Okay, that's when you are unable to recognize the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is something that, we would call like a higher vibratory solution, because as soon as you can see the bigger picture, you're going to be able to see new solutions. And that is the only thing you need to trust in. You only need to trust in that when you can't find a solution, it's probably because you are too much caught in that sort of animalistic type of body mind, okay, that can only more or less judge things based on, neurotransmitters and neural pathways and so forth. And I know nobody likes to hear that. And I'm not saying that all our emotions and all our thoughts are just a consequence of neurotransmitters. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the perception of it, okay? And our perception of what we are experiencing can be that limited. It can be irrational. It can be a more or less autopilot and zombie-like, okay? Or it can be conscious. It can be balanced. It can be, sort of standing in the center of things and knowing what is good for you and what isn't, knowing what needs to be let go of, what no longer serves you, knowing what you are allowing in and what you're putting out. So another tip for this month here, before I go to the important dates, is to pay more attention to what you're putting out. A lot of people, especially energetically sensitives and empaths, have gotten really good, and I'm saying really good sort of in quotation marks, about restricting what they let in. And, that's not a bad sort of notion when you feel overwhelmed and when you feel like you're absorbing too much. But what most people are not quite yet aware of is the mechanics of how this works. So the reason why we absorb so much is because, and without any further explanation, may be hard for you to understand how this works energetically, but it's because we project too much. Okay, so what are we projecting? Well, perhaps we are projecting that the world is hostile, or that, everything coming in from the outside is bad. And at that moment, our energy alignment is more or less setting us up to absorb more. It's obviously way more complex than that. I've written many articles and produced lots of YouTube videos explaining the dynamics of that. But the point being here is that how we approach it is how it comes back to us, in a very simple way. And that's why we need to pay attention to what we put out there. A lot of people feel very comfortable with, seeing the world as hostile, with seeing themselves as a victim, and with expressing this over and over again. So there's an entire notion really that it's better to be a victim than someone who is moving forward. And sometimes we even experience that within our own little social groups, is when somebody tries to move out of that. This can also be a family constellation, or some kind of peer group, that we experience a really strong pushback or resistance from other people. And that's because other people don't want us to progress, not because they're so mean or anything. No, those can be people who are actually friends, who are well-meaning. but it reminds them of their own limitation. And so whenever we question the status quo, whenever we question the comfort zone and actually start evolving beyond it, you're gonna have to expect that there is a pushback coming in, all right? And this is not because there's some evil conspiracy trying to hold you back or trying to get to you. It is because of how this works and how we are designed as humans. Okay, so please bear that in mind when you go out there in this world and talk about how hard it is for you as energetically sensitive or otherwise, or as a victim, or that and and that, because what are you basically setting yourself up for? You're setting yourself up for getting more of that. So, be really discerning here with how you approach this world, what you put out into this world, because manifestation energies are very immediate, very spontaneous, and very amplified this month. And this will continue throughout October in this way. And, we cannot control what happens in the collective here. There will be a lot of, continued confusion and, unrest in that way. Yeah, unrest in a way that we will not really feel comfortable in our comfort zone. But we as individuals, and together, sort of as this compound, this collectively individuated soul self, we can make choices that impact others in much, much bigger ways than how we can see this with our small body mind or ego mind. So every person, each and every one of us who out-vibrates the collective experience, in that sense of falling for either of the extremes, the two darknesses that we are experiencing right now as confrontation with untruths, in order to calibrate ourselves towards who we are and what we're doing, basically with the purpose to show us that we are a sovereign soul self, and we have to choose that. And if we don't choose that, then we will experience the collective karma here that is coming forward for each of our nations in a different way. So important dates here for you in May. Well, from today's perspective, the important date is April 30th, as sort of really the beginning of these May energies taking on form and manifesting in these the continued revelations. And it's more about lies. Okay, so there's this deceit going on that we all know about, but that we kind of bought into because it kind of brought us sort of this seeming peace of mind that I talked about earlier. But they're just sort of falling away bit by bit, and we all sort of arrows point at us. We have to make a decision. Very good other example is the vaccines. Okay, so it will come down to us needing to make a choice here. And if we're not sure, then the best thing is to go and find the information. Okay, don't go to the same place that you always read the news at, because chances are, if you're doing this with your phone or with your computer, that all you get is an echo chamber or some kind of algorithm that just shows you what these algorithms have identified as your sort of political orientation. Okay, go and do research specifically to some of your concerns. Okay, so learn how to express your concerns, do your due diligence, and then ask your heart. Okay, does this feel right to you or not? And because that is ultimately what you will need to reconcile. And if you don't want to get caught in this sort of endless emotional dysregulation of fear and guilt and regrets, which is the biggest danger, yeah, that we are running into here, then you're going to have to make a very, very conscious choice, not just in regards to vaccines, into regards to many, many other things, most of which I've described as this sort of stepping out of your peer group, stepping out of some kind of constellation that you found yourself in as part of your comfort zone that no longer serves you. That said, obviously doesn't mean that you have to like get divorced and quit your job and anything like that. No, this is a process, and you have to make this a very conscious process and learn how to discern truth. It's a systematic process. It's something that I teach here in that sacred self-healing environment. Is the systematicness, the way really of how to work with your body, with your emotions, with your thoughts, and come to a place of inner congruence and wholeness with it. Yeah, so it starts here, or well, it's already ongoing, but at the end of April really is where it's becoming sort of even more amplified. And we will recognize here throughout the beginning of May that there really is a need for a more holistic or a more complex solution. So the impulse for finding new ways, or for bridging something, or for trying to find a balance. In fact, actually, guys, I was blown away today for literally the first time in my life, and this may be just in Florida. I look at the full moon right now, and it literally looks like a yin-yang sign. I don't know if you can verify this yourself, but my moon looks like the, sort of like a scene from Kung Fu Panda, like a yin-yang sign. Amazing. I've never seen this before. Yeah, so that's, I don't know if that's an echo chamber, but it's really about that, working with our masculine and feminine energies here. That will come in very strongly right at the beginning of the month. Now, right around the 5th, 6th of May, it's really important that we understand what or how we can go into this deeper inner connection. There's solutions there that our ego mind cannot make up. So we have to understand that if we are in a situation where, this fight, flight, or freeze gets triggered, we need to know what to do. It's almost like martial arts for your body, mind, and emotion. Yeah, this is literally how I see what mindfulness and energy work does for us. It's a martial art. Okay, to really get yourself on one hand out of situations that your ego doesn't have a solution for, because once it's faced with survival, it doesn't know what to do. It usually goes into freeze. And on the other hand, also not to be erratic and to just start killing everything. Okay, so to be able to discern, to be able to prolong time and how you perceive reality, and to have a few sort of muscle memory structures in you that allow you to respond without having to go into that ego mind. So that starts here right around Cinco de Mayo. And there'll be some things that, in regards to our relationships. So masculine and feminine energies is always also, something, as above, so below. So it's within ourselves, it's in our relationships, but it's also reflected in our approach with the world. And right around like the 10th, 11th of May, that's the new moon time. Yeah, we're gonna have to really be able to connect with the planet. There's stuff going on here, in regards to Earth changes, in regards to some of these planetary cosmic things that I've mentioned at the beginning, that can be very overwhelming emotionally right around that time. Yeah. Then there was a bit of a release here, sort of a trauma response at first, and an inflammation of energies, big upheaval, really here, sort of collectively. Okay, that it can be caught, okay? It can be caught with the softer and more feminine approach, but obviously on a bigger level here, on a planetary level, that this isn't really in our hands. So this is where our expressions really become important. Like, how are we expressing our emotional state? What are we putting out into this world? Where we need to discipline this and overcome our fear, yeah, and recognize that really at the end of the day, if you will, all we can do is be true to ourselves and really stand with ourselves and find like-minded who do that too. So right around the say 16th 17th, it's the pinnacle of sort of collective fear setting in, and then from then on it gets a little calmer. Okay, so there's first this sort of trauma response, yeah, which is mostly physiological and emotional, and then comes a bit more pragmatism, in a bit of sort of a lot of philosophizing and causation, finding theories about why certain things are that way and so forth. And that's really when something unexpected will kick in. So right around like May 20th, 21st is a beautiful wave. I've never actually seen it this way, of clarity gonna come to us. And that is if we can stay in our heart. So there'll be a moment where the word breathing through your heart is no longer just a mindfulness technique, guys. I really need you guys to understand this. Breathing through your heart is what can reset your energy system in a heartbeat, and your physiology and your emotions and your thoughts and all that with it. And you will need this right around this time. And then we have, for those of us who really understand the meaning of this, a conscious letting go of stuff that no longer serves us, but only because we realize that, all this dabbling that we have been doing was all like on a conscious level that is no longer interesting to us. There'll be this feeling of like, it's getting old. It's a waste of time. Okay, it's not worth it for me. This is a very beautiful, balancing, harmonizing energy that will then continue throughout the end of May. Yeah, a very intense full moon again with the pink moon, really, really pinkish moon this time, and then an eclipse in some areas of our planet, lunar eclipse. And that will be sort of the time of this bifurcation, this decision making. So it will come earlier already, but that's then when you really need to decide if you are going into your heart mind, if you are really trusting in your ability to feel and work with truth, and really wanting to strive for this higher vibratory reality, which is possible, which is supported, at this time. It's very, very powerful manifestation energy there in this last week of May. Or whether you're going to succumb to your fears, to your inner darkness, and go into comfort zone and ego thinking and, just trying to get through. Yeah, so expressions of love and self-love, guys, that's going to be your currency in May, and they will bring massive rewards. So that's all I can say here in that regards. It can be a very, very beautiful month for those of us who actually, understand this bigger kind of karmic way of seeing the world and ourselves in it. Yeah. So what we will need is, understand that this these higher vibratory solutions that we're all yearning for, that they require us to learn and to think differently, and that we have the ability to do this. It's encoded in our soft skills, in our energy skills, and our energetic sensitivity, because that is an extra sense that allows us to really work and discern truth. We just need to learn how to harness that. Okay, there's this, it's not rocket science, and it's also not mystical. Okay, there's very clear mechanics to it, and then, yes, it is spiritual, yes, it is energetic, yes, it sounds woo, but it isn't. Okay, it's much simpler than you think it is. It's just ultimately, you know, the practice of you know, overcoming the addictions of our ego. Yeah. So yeah, don't get caught in your inner cognitive dissonances, okay, because your brain can't function right anymore. And pay attention to your emotional processing, because that's a big part of decoding what you are experiencing. Since I used the word currency here, just a quick word in regards to cryptocurrencies. Last month, I predicted a 30% correction for the stock market. As of yet, that hasn't happened yet, but I also mentioned that those of you who are invested in cryptos, especially those of you who've you know, started following me like, you know, 4 years ago, and I said, okay, guys, this is the time. Okay, and where they just trusted in their foresight. You know, when these corrections happen, they're like sending out here is like cutting the lawn. You know, it really sort of strengthens the foundation. So somebody asked me last month, well, what should I do? No, actually, just a couple of days ago, what should I do? I said, sure, you can sell your cryptos low and then rebuy them, because you guys know where this is going. Okay, there's going to be a huge shift in investment money towards this new technology, this blockchain technology. So the word currency is very misleading for people who don't understand the technology. It's not really a currency. Those are new ways of bookkeeping, new ways of contracting, new ways of supply chains, and so forth. All that is already there. So this is not a bubble, guys. Okay, this is a new technology, and I've been there in the early 80s. Where you know, I was talking to people about PCs and how they're all going to have PCs and laptops in the future, and it was part of my job. And you know, then a few years later, convincing people that they're all going to have internet and blah blah blah. I've gone through these cycles so many times already that I sometimes forget how it can look like. So yes, this is a big sort of shift that is coming in with May, so the materialization of that, but it actually starts now. Okay, so that's why it's really important to be present at all times, especially right now. If you can, come to our free online meditations and energy discussion groups. They go on every day, sometimes twice a day. You will find the links here in the video description. If you want to see me, this is not taking place on any social media platforms because most of my audience is kind of social media shy. And I don't I don't like it, that I don't own my own content. So I'm doing this on Skype, and the Skype links it's a loose group. Nobody, I mean, we know each other because there's a lot of regulars that come, but doesn't cost anything. You don't have to be part of anything. I don't have to sign up. You need a Skype account, that's all. And sometimes I record those sessions if they have significance. So Wednesdays at noon and Fridays at noon, you can do this discussion with me personally. On Fridays, I contextualize this as a sort of a weekly energy forecast. As always, I truly enjoy the talks that we have before we get to the forecast part. Please stay in interaction, ask questions and so forth. Come to our online meditations and discussions. And if you need more references or want to know more about how this works, these systematic ways of learning, of tapping into your soft skills, then browse my YouTube video, go to SoundCloud, go to Spotify, or visit my website at transcodes.com. Yeah, thank you. See you next month. Bye-bye.